got markets near record highs. The S&P set one yesterday, and it looks to me as though the TSX is in record territory as well today. Oh, the S&P down by a fraction of 1%. Let's get more from Greg Taylor, Chief Investment Officer at Purpose Investments. Greg, thanks for giving us the extra time.
Yeah,
we keep hearing the G word, Goldilocks, that things are not so hot. The economy's fine in the States, but not so hot that it'll deter the Fed from cutting rates.
Yeah, it's kind of the best case scenario out there right now, that we entered this year looking for a recession and aggressive rate cuts, and we're still getting those rate cuts, but we're not getting a recession. So it's you're getting the best of both worlds right now, and the equity markets are responding with markets basically across North America at all-time highs, and everything seems to be going almost too well. And when everything's going too well, you have to wonder what's going to come next, because we've still got good earnings growth. We've got interest rates still being forecast to be cut in the next few meetings, and it still seems like everything's fine. We've certainly got a lot of geopolitical risk out there in other parts of the world, and it's a lot of uncertainty around President Trump coming in. But from a market's point of view, this is kind of your best case scenario. And I think if we remember anything from President Trump's first term in office, he graded himself, and the scoreboard was the level of the S&P 500. So when you kind of know what the scoreboard is, it's nice to be able to get ahead of that. And I think that's why markets responded with pretty big gains post the election in the month of November.
It's interesting, though, black swan events. South Korea declaring martial law. Apparently, the legislators there are defying it. Pretty shocking development. So.
Oh, it is, and that just shows the things you can't predict. And we've got issues in France, and that's weighing on the price of the euro. So, kind of coming back, North American markets still look pretty good, and I think that's probably the one thing people can worry about, is that we've had so many years where the American market in particular has dominated the other parts of the world, and investors have been tempted to start allocating to international markets, and we had that pop in Japan earlier this year. But it's hard to say go against the U.S. They've got a very business-friendly administration coming in. Their economy still seems to be firing on all cylinders, and it's going to be hard to say the U.S. isn't going to have another good year coming up.
Let's put up maybe the U.S. dollar index, because I guess for a North American investor who went into Europe or the emerging markets, that tends to cut into the returns if it brings the Canadian dollar along for the ride.
Oh, absolutely. Currency is a big impact here, and certainly seeing what the Canadian dollar has done in the last few weeks, that has had an impact on investors that haven't had exposure to the U.S. markets held in U.S. dollars. So FX has been volatile, and I think that's the one thing that we can probably have the caveat for markets right now, is the strength in the U.S. currency. I think that's something that's open for debate next year. Certainly the U.S. dollar is going up with interest rates being forecasted to stay a little higher for longer, and the U.S. economy being the strongest in the world. But at the end of the day, the U.S. dollar being strong isn't great for what President Trump wants, which is bringing manufacturing back to the U.S., increasing exports, and that doesn't really go hand in hand with a stronger dollar. So you have to wonder if he's going to do something to try and get that dollar lower to try and stimulate exports. But that's something that could be more of a story for 25.
Yeah, it's interesting because, of course, a high U.S. dollar tends to lead to trade deficits. It's hard for American exporters to compete.
Right. So I think probably all things being equal, they would favor the dollar to go lower in the second half.
They never admit that, though. Sorry, Greg.
Well, President Trump did say that during his campaign, that he was in favor of lowering the dollar to try and stimulate exports. And then when he gets reelected, the dollar takes off. So you have to wonder if he's completely happy with that outcome so far, or whether that's something he wants to address going forward.